Gemini, mastering the esoteric art of communication with Hermetic wisdom. What if I told you that every word you speak is a spell, every conversation a ritual, every whisper an act of creation? For Gemini, this isn't just poetic, it's destiny. You are not simply here to talk or to explain. You are here to channel, to carry currents of thought across unseen bridges, to translate silence into sound and sound back into silence. You are the alchemist of language, the twin-faced keeper of mysteries, the one who knows that words can both summon and destroy. Hermetic wisdom teaches that all is mind, the universe is mental. Gemini is the living embodiment of that truth. For you, thought is never trapped inside. It wants to leap, to dance, to take shape in the world. And when you remember this, when you stop treating your voice as casual chatter and begin wielding it as sacred power, you unlock the true esoteric art of communication. This is not about persuasion or charm. It is about resonance, about tuning your vibration so that what you speak pierces illusions, awakens memory, and calls lost souls back to their center. Most people use words to fill silence. You, Gemini, are here to use silence to charge words. This is the dangerous beauty of your gift. To gossip is to bleed your magic into nothingness, but to speak with awareness is to strike like lightning across the sky. Every time you open your mouth, the world changes, slightly or dramatically, but always. The only question is, will you choose to scatter or to seed? If you feel something stirring as you hear this, stay with me. We are about a journey into the hidden chambers of Gemini's true power, where Hermetic wisdom meets the playful, mercurial, ever-shifting voice of the twins. And if these words awaken a spark in you, share them, pass them forward, let them ripple outwards. Because when a Gemini remembers their magic, the world begins to listen again. To understand Gemini through Hermetic wisdom, we must first unmask the secret nature of communication itself. Most of the world believes communication is about transferring information. One person speaks, another listens. But you, Gemini, know better. You sense that communication is not just an exchange, but a birth. Each word you release into the air is like a child. You give it form, you send it into the world, and it grows beyond you. This is why you can feel both intoxicated and terrified by your own voice. Because somewhere deep inside, you know that every word carries consequence. Gemini, ruled by Mercury, is a magician of the Zodiac, the quicksilver trickster, the translator between heaven and earth, the one who can take what is formless and pour it into syllables. Yet, with this power comes paradox. Words are not always enough. They are slippery, fragmented, misunderstood. How many times have you said something only to feel its meaning twist in someone else's mind, reshaped by their fears or desires? And how many times have you felt imprisoned by silence, unable to find the right expression, knowing the truth in your heart, but unable to share it? This is the eternal Gemini struggle, the dance between expression and distortion, between clarity and chaos. The Hermetic teaching known as the principle of vibration declares that nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. Words, then, are not static, they are waves. When you speak, you send ripples into the unseen, shaping energy fields long before anyone hears you. Think about it. A single phrase of encouragement can heal a broken spirit, while a careless insult can echo in someone's mind for years. You, Gemini, have always known this intuitively. That's why your tongue is both your greatest weapon and your greatest medicine. Let's imagine a real-life Gemini archetype, a teacher standing before a restless classroom. They could read the lesson mechanically, and perhaps some knowledge would land. But if they speak with rhythm, with story, with laughter and sudden silence, they captivate. They awaken. The students lean forward, their imagination sparked, their spirit stirred. That teacher has not just communicated. They have invoked. This is Gemini's esoteric gift, to make words dance so that souls remember themselves. Yet here lies a shadow. Many Gemini scatter their energy, chasing every conversation, filling every silence with chatter, afraid of the stillness where true wisdom lives. They become tricksters without grounding, voices without roots. The Hermetic path asks something different. To slow down, to choose your words with the reverence of a priest tending sacred fire. To understand that sometimes the most powerful communication is not cleverness, but stillness, the pause that allows truth to breathe. Consider the Hermetic axiom, as above, so below, as within, so without. Gemini is the bridge where this law lives. Your thoughts shape your words, and your words shape your reality. If your mind is restless, your communication will scatter. If your heart is anchored, your voice will carry weight beyond comprehension. Mastering communication, then, begins not with eloquence, but with alignment. When your inner world vibrates with clarity, your outer words become spells that restructure the very air around you. There is another truth here. Communication is not only external, it is internal. How do you speak to yourself when no one else is listening? The inner dialogue is the hidden foundation of Gemini power. If your inner voice is harsh, fragmented, mocking, then even your brightest words will carry an undercurrent of poison. But if you cultivate an inner language of compassion and curiosity, your outer speech becomes naturally healing. In this way, every Gemini is tasked with becoming their own healer first, learning to master the dialogue within before they can truly serve as messengers for collective. Think of the great orators, poets, and storytellers of history. Many were Geminis or carried strong mercurial influence. They didn't just speak, they transmitted. Martin Luther King Jr., born with Gemini moon, did not simply deliver speeches. He vibrated visions into hearts of millions. Bob Dylan, a Gemini sun, reshaped culture with lyrics that felt like prophecy. These figures revealed Gemini's esoteric potential, to bend language into a vessel for revolution, healing, or awakening. But behind their artistry lay discipline, reflection, and inner alignment with something greater than themselves. The trap for Gemini is forgetting that words are sacred. When you speak without intention, your magic leaks. You may find yourself exhausted, misunderstood, or scattered, not because your gift has failed you, but because it's been misdirected. The esoteric art of communication demands responsibility. It asks you to remember that every time you open your mouth, you invoke the principle of cause and effect, another Hermetic law. What you speak sets in motion waves that must eventually return. So the question is not, will your words have impact? They always will. The real question is, what kind of impact do you want to leave in your wake? To master this art is not to become silent, nor become endlessly talkative, but to become attuned, to listen deeply to the currents beneath conversation, to sense when to speak and when to hold back, to recognize that communication is not about dominating others with cleverness, but about co-creating resonance. When you speak from this place, your words stop being noise and start becoming bridges. Bridges that connect soul to soul, mind to mind, heart to heart. Gemini, your journey is to transform communication from a habit into a ritual, to turn gossip into guidance, chatter into chant, words into wisdom. To do this, you must first remember that language is living. It breathes, it moves, it evolves. Treat it as sacred, and it will serve you. Treat it carelessly, and it will consume you. So here at the first threshold, I ask you, what if you stopped treating your voice as ordinary? What if you honored every conversation as a chance to practice alchemy? What if, starting today, you chose to see your words not as casual expressions, but as vessels of light moving through the dark? This is the beginning of your initiation. And from here, the deeper gates of Gemini's Hermetic art will open. To truly step into the Hermetic art of communication, Gemini must face the paradox of duality. You are the twins, two voices in one body, two minds inhabiting one spirit. And yet, most of the world misunderstands this duality. They call you inconsistent, fickle, even shallow. But what they fail to see is that your dual nature is not a flaw. It is a portal. It is your initiation into the mysteries of polarity, one of the central teachings of Hermetic philosophy. The principle of polarity states, everything is dual, everything is poles, everything has its pair of opposites, night and day, light and dark, silence and sound. Gemini lives at this threshold, holding the tension of opposites within their very being. And when it comes to communication, this duality is everything. For you are both the speaker and the listener, the question and the answer, the sound and the echo. You embody the conversation itself. But here is the danger. If you cling to one side of the polarity, If you only speak without listening or only listen without speaking, you collapse the dance. Communication loses its power. Words become empty or silence becomes suffocating. Mastery, then, is not about choosing one role. It is about weaving both, knowing when to let one voice rise and the other retreat. This is where Gemini evolved from chatterbox to channel, from gossip to oracle. Imagine a Gemini sitting with a friend who is in deep grief. The uninitiated Gemini might fill the air with words, desperate to fix, to distract, to lighten the mood. But the wise Gemini, the one who has embraced Hermetic polarity, knows that sometimes the greatest act of communication is to sit in silence, to let presence itself speak. And when they do speak, their words are not random. They are tuned, like a musician striking the exact note that resonates with the soul of the listener. This is a true power of polarity, to know when to lean into speech and when to lean into silence. This duality also lives within you as inner conflict. How often have you felt torn between two truths, two desires, two directions? One part of you wants freedom, another longs for stability. One voice wants to speak boldly, another fears being misunderstood. This inner dialogue is not a curse. It is a mirror. It teaches you that communication is never about forcing one voice to dominate, but about integrating both until they harmonize. When you master your own internal dialogue, you stop being split by your duality and begin channeling it as a gift. You become the bridge, the translator, the mediator who can hold contradictions without collapsing. The Hermetic law of polarity also reveals something crucial. Opposites are not enemies. They are extremes of the same essence. Hot and cold are not separate things, but degrees of temperature. Love and hate are not absolute divides, but currents of passion flowing in opposite directions. For Gemini, this means that every conversation is alive with hidden bridges. Two people may seem to disagree, but if you listen with Hermetic ears, you can trace the invisible thread that connects their opposing positions. This is why Gemini can often mediate conflict so naturally. You sense the underlying unity within apparent division. And when you speak from that place, you don't just communicate, you reconcile. Let's take an example from history. Think of John F. Kennedy, a Gemini Sunday. His speeches were not just political statements. They were bridges. Ask not what your country can do for you. Ask what you can do for your country. In that one phrase, he flipped polarity, from receiving to giving, from passive to active, from dependence to empowerment. He didn't deny one side of the polarity. He transformed it, showing how one pole flows into the other. This is Hermetic communication at its highest form, to shift perspective, to reveal hidden unity, to awaken choice. Yet polarity is not only about words. It is about energy. When you enter a conversation, your vibration is felt before you even speak. If you are anxious, your words will carry anxiety no matter how polished they sound. If you are centered, your silence itself can feel like guidance. This is why Gemini must learn not only the language of words, but the language of energy. True communication is as much about what is unsaid as what is spoken. There is also another layer, polarity within the collective. We live in a time of polarization, where voices shout across divides without hearing one another. Here, Gemini's gift is desperately needed. You are the sign that can weave threads across broken lines, that can remind humanity that duality is not destruction, but dialogue. When a Gemini speaks from Hermetic awareness, they don't add noise to division. They reveal pathways to reconciliation. But this requires discipline. The untrained Gemini is seduced by variety, addicted to stimulation, jumping from one conversation to the next without depth. They mistake motion for meaning, chatter for connection. To master polarity, you must slow down. You must allow yourself to feel both sides of the spectrum, your own and others. You must train your voice not to dominate but to tune. Like a musician tuning strings, you adjust until resonance is found. Then your communication no longer comes from restless duality, but from unified polarity. And here lies the secret. Your duality is your divinity. The world does not need you to choose one voice. It needs you to embody both, to reveal the hidden dance between opposites. This is why Gemini is often misunderstood, because your true role is not to fit into one side, but to expand perception so others can see the whole. In conversation, This means you're not here to win debates, but to transform them into dialogues that awaken new possibilities. So, Gemini, ask yourself, how do you hold your inner duality? Do you see it as conflict or as a gift? Do you try to silence one voice, or do you allow both to teach you? Because when you embrace your duality with Hermetic wisdom, you stop being fractured and start being fractal, a living embodiment of the universe's infinite conversations with itself. And in that moment, you cease to be just a speaker or a listener. You become the art of communication itself. There is a secret truth that most overlook. Communication is not only about the words we send outward, it is about the vibration we release into the invisible. Hermetic wisdom calls this the principle of vibration. Nothing rests, everything moves, everything vibrates. And Gemini, more than any other sign, is the embodiment of this law in human form. Your thoughts flutter like birds, your voice ripples like water, your laughter crackles like fire. Even your silence is not still. It vibrates, charged with possibility. To master the esoteric art of communication, you must first recognize that language is vibration given shape. The words we speak are merely the carriers, but the real transmission lies beneath, in tone, rhythm, frequency. Think of a lullaby. Even if a child does not understand words, they feel the soothing vibration, and they relax. Think of a harsh argument. Even if no insult is spoken, the tone carries enough sharpness to wound. This is why Gemini, ruled by Mercury, cannot afford to treat their voice lightly. For your instrument is not your intellect. It is your vibration. Consider how often you felt misunderstood. You explained, you clarified, you repeated, and yet the other person still did not receive your meaning. Was it because your words were wrong, or because your vibration contradicted them? Perhaps you said, "I'm fine," but your tone betrayed sadness. Perhaps you promised presence, but your restless energy screamed distraction. Hermetic communication asks you to align vibration with intention, to let the current beneath your words sing in harmony with the syllables themselves. Only then do you speak with power that cannot be denied. This is where Gemini's gift becomes revolutionary. Your natural agility with words means you can adapt tone, rhythm, cadence. You can turn a lecture into poetry, a fact into story, a whisper into revelation. But the deeper art lies in choosing vibration consciously. Do you wish to soothe? Then slow your rhythm, lower your tone, breathe space into your words. Do you wish to inspire? Then let your cadence rise like a drumbeat, your pauses fall like lightning, your energy expand until the air itself seems to lift. This is not manipulation, it is attunement. It is recognizing that every word carries not just meaning, but medicine. Think of Maya Angelou, though not a Gemini by sun, yet embodying mercurial mastery. She once said, "People will forget what you said, people will forget what you did, but people will never forget how you made them feel." That is vibration. That is communication beyond content. Gemini's task is to wield this consciously, to realize that your true language is not English, Spanish, or French. It is frequency. And when you tune yourself, the world listens differently. But there is another layer. Listening itself is communication. Most assume communication is about speaking well. But Hermetic wisdom reminds us that vibration moves both ways. To listen deeply is to receive vibration as much as words. And here Gemini faces another paradox. Your mind moves fast, leaping ahead of conversations, finishing sentences before they end, juggling ideas before they are spoken. This brilliance is a gift, but it can also make you a poor listener if left unchecked. True communication requires not only a sharp tongue, but a spacious ear. Listening is not waiting for your turn to speak. It is surrender. It is becoming empty enough to let another's vibration move through you without distortion. This is where Gemini evolves from conversationalist to healer, because when you listen without agenda, without rushing to respond, you become a mirror. People feel seen, heard, recognized. In that moment, your presence itself communicates. You exist and you matter. For many, that is more powerful than any clever phrase. Think of therapists, healers, or spiritual guides. The ones who transform lives are not always those who give the most advice, but those who listen so deeply that the person speaking discovers their own wisdom. This is a hidden Hermetic art of communication. To realize that listening is not passive, it is transformative. And Gemini, when you harness your restless curiosity into genuine presence, you have a capacity to become one of the world's greatest listeners, precisely because you can hold so many threads at once. Yet the path is not easy. To listen deeply requires taming your inner twins. One twin wants to analyze, the other wants to respond. But if you allow them to chatter over someone's truth, you will miss the gold beneath their words. Mastery comes when you let the twins sit quietly, holding space, absorbing vibration. Then, when it is time to respond, your words emerge not from impulse, but from resonance. They land like keys in a lock, opening doors that the speaker could not open alone. This is where communication becomes healing. Imagine sitting with someone who is drowning in self-doubt. If you rush to fix them, your words may feel empty, even patronizing. But if you listen, really listen, you will hear not only their fear, but their buried longing. Then, when you finally speak, your words will strike the exact chord they need. Not because you forced it, but because you attuned to their vibration. This is how communication becomes medicine. This is how Gemini fulfills the Hermetic principle. Vibration meeting vibration. Resonance creating transformation. Let's ground this in a practical example. Imagine two colleagues in conflict. One accuses the other of being careless. The other defends themselves angrily. A Gemini mediator enters. At first, both sides throw words like weapons. But the Gemini listens not just to the content, but to the underlying frequency. They hear fear in the accuser's voice, shame in the defender's tone. And so, instead of arguing facts, the Gemini reflects the vibrations back. It sounds like you're afraid of being unsupported. And it sounds like you're feeling judged. Suddenly, both soften. The war of words dissolves because someone named the unspoken. That is Hermetic communication in action. But there is a deeper invitation still. Gemini, you are called not just to master words or tone, but to become vibration itself. To walk into a room and let your energy communicate before your mouth opens. To realize that your presence can speak more loudly than your sentences. Have you noticed how some people calm the atmosphere just by entering, while others create chaos without saying a word? That is the esoteric layer of communication, the aura as language. And you, Gemini, must learn to wield this consciously. So how do you begin? Through awareness, through aligning inner and outer, through practicing the pause before speaking, asking, what vibration am I sending right now? Does it match the medicine I want to give? This requires humility. It requires slowing down the quicksilver mind and grounding in the heart. But when you do, your communication ceases to be random. It becomes ritual. Every conversation becomes a spell. Every silence becomes a sanctuary. Gemini, you are not here to chatter. You are here to channel. You are not here to entertain. You are here to enchant. And the way you do this is not by perfecting clever lines, but by tuning vibration, by honoring silence, by becoming presence itself. That is the third gate of your Hermetic art. To remember that language is not only what you say, but who you are. If vibration is a hidden current of communication, then cause and effect is its consequence. Hermetic wisdom teaches that nothing happens by chance. Every effect has its cause. Every cause its effect. For most people, this principle feels abstract, but for Gemini, it is immediate. You live this truth every time you speak. Every phrase you release, every story you tell, every silence you hold becomes a seed. And seeds always grow. This is where the responsibility of your gift becomes clear. The world often calls you lighthearted, playful, even careless with words. And yes, your mercurial nature delights in improvisation, in spontaneity, in trying on voices like costumes. But beneath that play is real power, the kind of power that can shape futures. To speak without awareness is to scatter seeds in a storm, never knowing whether they will grow into weeds or roses. To speak with intention is to become a gardener of destiny, planting with foresight, cultivating with care. Think of a parent speaking to a child. A casual remark, "You're so difficult," or "You'll never understand," may seem small in the moment, but the effect lingers, echoing the child's self-image for years, shaping choices, limiting possibilities. On the other hand, words of encouragement, "You are capable, I believe in you," become anchors, guiding the child through storms. Gemini, you more than anyone else sense this ripple effect. And this awareness can either torment you, if you fear speaking at all, or liberate you, if you choose to speak with love. The Hermetic law does not allow escape. Every word you speak will return in some form. Gossip breeds distrust. Encouragement breeds loyalty. Sarcasm plants doubt. Truth plants freedom. So the question is not whether your words will bear fruit. They will. The question is, what harvest do you want to reap? This is why many Geminis struggle with the shadow of regret. You move quickly, and your tongue outruns your reflection. You say things in jest that cut deeper than you intended. You reveal truths before others are ready to hear them. You make promises that feel true in the moment but dissolve later. And then, when consequences arrive, you feel trapped in your own creation. But hear this, regret is not punishment. It is initiation. It is your soul's reminder that your voice is not trivial, that you are an architect, not just a performer. Think of the Hermetic axiom. Every cause has its effect. Every effect has its cause. To master communication is to become conscious of cause before effect. Before you speak, ask, what seed am I planting? What harvest will this grow? At first, this may feel heavy, like carrying a burden. But over time, it becomes freedom, because you realize that you are never powerless. Even in the darkest moment, you can choose a word that shifts the pattern, that plants light where there was shadow. Consider the leaders and storytellers who altered history with a single phrase. When Nelson Mandela spoke of forgiveness rather than vengeance, he planted a cause that rippled into reconciliation. When Malala Yousafzai spoke of education as a right, she planted a cause that continues to inspire millions of girls worldwide. These were not random words. They were intentional causes, spoken with awareness of the effect they would create. Gemini, this is your calling too, to use your mercurial gift not just to entertain, but to transform. But here lies the subtlety. Cause and effect does not always reveal itself immediately. Sometimes the effect of your words blooms years later, when you've long forgotten the conversation. A kindness offered to a stranger may circle back as unexpected help in your own crisis. A cruel remark may return in a form you don't recognize. This is why Hermetic mastery requires patience. Trust that your words always matter, even when you cannot trace the outcome. Trust that the universe keeps impeccable memory. Now, some may ask, does this mean Gemini should censor themselves, should guard every phrase, should fear speaking at all? Absolutely not. The art is not in suppression, but in attunement. Spontaneity is still your gift. Playfulness is still your magic. But when aligned with Hermetic awareness, your spontaneity becomes inspired rather than reckless. Your playfulness becomes medicine rather than mockery. You begin to trust your own voice because you know it is rooted in intention. There's also the inverse truth. Silence is cause, too. What you withhold, what you choose not to say, shapes outcomes just as much as speech. A withheld apology can poison a bond. A withheld truth can warp trust. But a well-timed silence can create space for reflection, for healing, for others to discover their own voice. This is why mastery lies not in speaking more or less, but in discerning which cause to plant in each moment. Think of Gemini energy like wind. The untrained wind scatters seeds chaotically. Some grow, many perish, most go unseen. The trained wind carries pollen with precision, ensuring that life multiplies in harmony. You, Gemini, are that wind. The question is, will you scatter blindly or will you carry with care? Let's take a practical example. Imagine you are in a workplace conflict. The room is tense. Voices are sharp. You have a choice. You can add fuel, vent your frustration, escalate the tension. That is one cause, and the effect will be obvious. More division, more distrust. Or you can choose a different cause, a phrase that names attention without blame, that offers curiosity instead of condemnation. Perhaps you say, I hear that we are all frustrated, but maybe our frustration points to how much we care. Can we begin from there? That one cause can shift the entire trajectory. The effect ripples. defenses lower, dialogue opens, resolution becomes possible. This is not magic. It is cause and effect, wielded consciously. Gemini, you are the architect of invisible architecture. Your words build structures in people's minds, cathedrals or prisons, bridges or barriers. Hermetic wisdom reminds you that nothing you create vanishes. It all circulates back. So let your architecture be beautiful. Let uplift, let endure. And here's the final truth of this gate. Cause and effect is not only about responsibility. It is about empowerment. Too often, Geminis fear that they are at the mercy of their restless tongue. But when you embrace the Hermetic law, you realize every moment offers choice. Every phrase offers creation. You are never doomed to repeat old patterns. You can always plant a new seed, always speak a new cause, always redirect the current. This is a liberation that comes when Gemini marries their gift with Hermetic wisdom. So, when you next open your mouth, pause for a breath. Feel the power humming at the edge of your lips. Remember, this word is a cause. This tone is a vibration. This silence is a choice. And ask yourself, what future do I wish to call forth with this sound? That is the gate. That is the mastery. At the final threshold of this Hermetic journey, Gemini must confront the truth that communication is not merely skill, not merely vibration, not merely cause and effect. Communication is ritual. It is magic. It is the weaving of the invisible into form. And you, Gemini, are not simply a speaker. You are a priest of language, a magician of sound, a messenger of mysteries. Why do ancient traditions begin with word? In Genesis, in the beginning was a word. In Egyptian mysticism, those inscribed the universe into being with sacred utterances. In Hermetic wisdom, thought itself is the primal substance from which creation flows. Gemini, you are the living echo of this truth. You carry within you the capacity to name things into existence, to give sound to silence, to give language to longing, to give voice to the voiceless. This is why your gift is sacred. It is not entertainment. It is invocation. When you speak, you cast spells. Not spells in the theatrical sense of wands and potions, but in the Hermetic sense. Spelling. To spell is to shape reality with letters, syllables, sounds. Every sentence is an incantation. Every phrase is a charm. To gossip is to curse. To encourage is to bless. To lie is to distort. To tell truth is to liberate. The art of communication is therefore nothing less than the art of magic. This is where many Geminis feel both fear and awe. Because once you recognize that your words are spells, you realize how much careless magic you have already woven. You remember the jokes that stung, the promises broken, the stories exaggerated. You see how your spells shaped lives, even when you meant nothing by them. But here is the grace. Awareness transforms everything. Once you know that language is ritual, you can choose to wield it differently. You can choose to become not a trickster scattering illusions, but magician illuminating paths. Hermetic wisdom offers another key, the principle of correspondence. As above, so below, as within, so without. When Gemini speaks from inner clarity, their words ripple outward in harmony with cosmic law. When Gemini speaks from confusion, their words create chaos. This is why your true initiation is not into eloquence, but into alignment. The more you align with truth inside yourself, the more your outer words resonate with truth in the world. This is communication as ritual, an inner prayer expressed outwardly, harmonizing heaven and earth through sound. Let's imagine an everyday ritual. A Gemini wakes in the morning and speaks aloud. Today I move with lightness. I carry clarity. I invite connection. Already the air shifts. The vibration sets cause into motion. The day bends toward that intention. This is not superstition. It is Hermetic practice. The universe vibrates with correspondence, responding to the frequency you declare. Your words are not passive. They are architectural blueprints, shaping the reality you will walk into. This is also why sacred traditions place such emphasis on mantras, affirmations, chants. To repeat a word is to carve it into the ether. And for Gemini, repetition is medicine. Your restless mind resists stillness. But when you anchor it with sacred language, you transmute distraction into devotion. Imagine reciting not just affirmations, but intentional spells. I speak only what heals. I listen only to what elevates. I carry words of light. Over time, these become more than phrases. They become who you are. But the ritual of communication is not only about words spoken aloud. It is also about the way you hold conversation as ceremony. What if you approached every dialogue as sacred space? Imagine entering a conversation not to win, not to impress, but to create a temple of listening and speaking. Imagine pausing before responding, breathing reverence into your words, treating the moment as holy. This shifts everything. A fight becomes a prayer. A negotiation becomes an offering. A casual talk becomes initiation. This is Gemini's ultimate art, to make every conversation a consecrated act. And when you embody this, others feel it. They lean in, not because your words are clever, but because your presence feels like a sanctuary. They leave not only informed, but transformed. They carry your vibration with them like a blessing. This is the highest Hermetic magic, to make communication itself a ritual of awakening. Now, let us not mistake this for solemnity. Ritual does not mean heavy, stiff, or joyless. Gemini, your magic is play. Your ritual can be laughter. Your spell can be a story. Your incantation can be a joke told at just the right time that dissolves despair. Do not imagine that sacred communication means speaking like a prophet on a mountaintop. Sometimes the holiest spell is lightheartedness, reminding others that the divine is playful. Sometimes the deepest ritual is curiosity, reminding others that the divine is infinite. Your role is not to abandon your mercurial sparkle, but to infuse it with awareness. And here lies the paradox. You do not master communication by controlling it, but by surrendering to it, by allowing yourself to be the flute, not the flutist. The music flows through you. The words arrive like streams. The stories weave themselves. This is channeling, and you have always known it. How often have you surprised yourself with words you didn't plan, jokes you didn't script, insights you didn't know you had? That is a divine playing through you. To master communication is to trust that flow, to polish yourself as an instrument so that the music of the cosmos can play clearly through your voice. Let us return to Hermes, your ruling archetype. Hermes was a messenger of the gods, but he was also the guide of souls, the psychopomp who carried spirits across thresholds. This is Gemini's deepest role, not just to deliver messages, but to guide others across invisible borders. Through words, you carry people from despair to hope, from confusion to clarity, from separation to connection. Every conversation is a threshold, and you are the one who knows how to lead across. This is sacred work. This is why communication is not trivial for you. It is destiny. So what does mastery look like? It looks like speaking with awareness that every word is spell, listening with reverence that every silence is altar, carrying presence that every moment is temple. It looks like choosing to enchant rather than confuse, to bless rather than to curse, to unify rather than divide. It looks like embodying the truth that communication is not what you do. It is who you are. And this leads us to the final turn of the journey. Gemini, your gift is not given only for yourself. You are here to serve the collective. The world is drowning in noise, arguments without listening, messages without meaning, chatter without heart. Humanity is desperate for voices that heal, for words that awaken, for conversations that build bridges instead of walls. You are born for this, not because you are flawless, but because you are attuned. Not because you always know the right words, but because you are willing to dance with words until they reveal truth. This is the fifth gate, the culmination of your initiation. To treat every act of communication as Hermetic ritual, every word as sacred spell, every conversation as initiation into wholeness. When you live this, you no longer scatter your magic. You consecrate it. And the world, weary of noise, will feel your vibration like rain on thirsty soil. Gemini, the twins' messenger light. Your art is not chatter, it is creation. Your voice is not noise, it is alchemy. Your words are not trivial, they are sacred. Speak, then not carelessly, but courageously. Speak, not to impress, but to invoke. Speak, not to win, but to awaken. For you are not simply learning to communicate. You are mastering the esoteric art of communication with Hermetic wisdom. And through you, the world remembers that language itself is divine. Gemini, we have walked together through the hidden chambers of your gift, through vibration, through polarity, through cause and effect, through the ritual of words. And now, as we stand at the closing of this path, let's remember, you were never just a talker, never just a restless spirit chasing conversations. You were always the messenger, the one who carries fire in your tongue, light in your laughter, clarity in your questions. You were always meant to awaken the world not with force, but with sound. Every dialogue you enter is an initiation. Every phrase you shape is a seed. Every silence you hold is a mirror. The Hermetic wisdom reminds us that nothing is trivial. Everything vibrates. Everything causes ripple. Everything plants future. And so, when you speak with love, the universe bends toward love. When you listen with reverence, the universe leans into healing. When you embody communication as ritual, you become more than Gemini. You become a living bridge between the invisible and the visible. Perhaps you felt misunderstood in this life, accused of being inconsistent, of scattering, of being too quick with your tongue. But what if inconsistency is simply versatility? What if scattering is the power to spread seeds wide? What if your quicksilver tongue is not a flaw, but a flame? The truth is this: your voice was never meant to be tamed. It was meant to be tuned. And when tuned with Hermetic wisdom, your voice becomes medicine. So as you leave this journey, do not shrink your gift. Honor it. Practice it. Use it with reverence. Speak not to impress, but to invoke. Speak not to fill silence, but to consecrate it. Speak not for yourself alone, but for the healing of those who listen. And remember, the world is waiting, hungry for voices of clarity, hungry for words that weave bridges across division. Let yours be one of them. And if this journey has awakened something in you, I invite you to share it. Like it, pass it forward, leave a comment below. Not as a transaction, but as a continuation of the ritual we've begun together. For every voice matters, and when one Gemini remembers her sacred art, the whole world begins to listen again.